Okay, I think this is gonna be the last day that we focus on Meiri, no matter how far we get, because I kind of want to do a regular Mishlei pasuk tomorrow. I'm just in the mood. I kind of feel like we should review an idea from Tehillim last night.
Great.
So let's do that. So, well, first of all, with Meiri, we read few enough sentences that I think we should just reread everything in the derech. So derech, bal ha'ir. Oh, sorry, I should say this is about chapter 6, pesukim 6 through 11. We're not going to reread the pesukim because you're on part 4. Derech Nister.
Let me review the pesukim, then we're just gonna.
Yeah, right. Well, I did. I mean, I know I have told the story before, but the story demands that I review the story. The best experience I've ever had reviewing anything was the summer that the second summer that Rabbi Moskowitz and I sat down to write the Mishlei lexicon, where we were doing all the personalities in Mishlei. And so we started off with laziness, and so we learned every pasuk in Mishlei about laziness, and then we were going to go back to record it. And so we developed the whole theory of laziness, and then we went back to record it. And then Ryan Moskowitz said, maybe we should, now that we've seen the whole thing, let's review each one before we record it. So we did all of them again, and it shifted our understanding of a bunch of stuff. So then we started recording, and as we started recording, when we went through them, our theory shifted again. So we finished the entire third round and recorded it, and said we can always just record another one. And then we did the fourth one. And in the fourth one, we went through it again and saw new insights. And it was, I've always been a big advocate of doing Chazara on everything, but never had I gone that far and seen firsthand, how it's literally a different learning experience each time. It's not just repeating it. And I never done the third and fourth round in that close proximity. In fact, I was actually thinking about, I assume that those shiurim are online, and now that we've been talking about laziness for a while, I kind of want to go and listen to what he and I came up with. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I will endeavor to do that. Yeah. Okay.
Do you mind editing this?
Sure. Oh, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, assuming I find them. Hard to know where Rabbi Moskowitz stuff ends up getting posted. Yeah, I don't know. All right, but yeah, if I find it, I'll do that. Derech Nister bal ha'ir lihishtadav limud hachma. So in the concealed way of learning the pasuk, it is giving us an insight to strive in our limud hachma. Yadua shelimud hachma tzarich hishtadlus chazaka v'torech rav. It's known that learning chachma requires tremendous effort and work. The af kishiyagi l'shleimus, and even when you reach perfection, tzarich lo shkida v'hatmada shelo tishkaf mimenu. Then you need diligence and persistence in order to not forget it. Are you going to ask what it means that you reach perfection? Yes. Yeah, I wonder what that is also. My guess is he's just giving a hypothetical of even hypothetically if the person did reach perfection. Don't think that this is only necessary along the way. There's maintenance as a separate thing, and I feel like I mentioned this in somewhere recently. That's one of the reasons the Rambam gave for writing the Mishnah Torah, so that in his old age he doesn't forget, and then he himself also said that he regretted, we read this earlier in the year, that he regretted not writing a book of sources because he now in his old age doesn't remember where he got certain things from, So even the Rambam, who did reach more perfection in Chachma than we can ever reach, Chachmas Torah, needs to review. Yeah. So it must be if he's talking about the Rambam. Yeah. All right. Come on, Ramazal. Yom Tazveni Yomaim Ezbeka. As Chazal say, you abandon me for 1 day, and I'll abandon you for 2. So in Avos Rabbi Nathan, it says a person can learn Torah in 10 years and forget it in 2 years. Yeah.
And that you were saying was because you lose the identification.
Right. So this is what the idea from Tehillim was about, right? That we the seed was planted in the morning yesterday, then it sprouted at night, which was the pasuk in Tehillim is Ashri Ha'ish. What was it? Plant muscles. Yes. Yeah. Oh, you're right. I didn't even think about that. Ashri Ha'ish asher lo halach ba'atat rishayim u'v'derech ha'tayim lamad u'v'moshev leitzim lo yashav ki im b'torah Hashem chavta v'torah yehageh yom v'layla. So in praiseworthy is the man who does not follow the counsel of the wicked and does not sit in the section of scorners. Does not stand in the path of sinners and does not sit in the section of scorners, but only in the Torah of Hashem is his desire, and in his Torah he meditates day and night. Right. So Chazal learn all three personalities as interchangeable, and say there's no difference between Leitzim, Rishayim, and Chatayim in that context. That was a vindication for you. Yeah. And the Chazal say, like, if you're not standing, if you're not walking with them, how would you possibly stand with them? And if you're not standing with them, how would you possibly sit with them? So we tried to figure out last night, how is it that you can, so because if you walk with them, you'll eventually end up standing. If you stand with them, you'll eventually end up sitting. So the question is, how does that work psychologically? And the theory we came up with last night is it has to do with identification, that if you are not a Rasha and you walk with Rashaim, you tell yourself, I'll never do what these people do because I'm not like them. And so it's based on the identification that you don't identify with them. But then what happens is, since the identification is the only thing that prevents you from acting like them, then the more you hang out with them, the more your identification starts to shift with them, to the point where you then do things that the previous you wouldn't have done. But then you draw another and say, well, okay, fine. Like, I'm not, I might be, walking with them. You don't say it in those terms because then you realize, but I would never stand with them, and again, it's an identification thing. And then the identification goes more, and then you end up going into that. So I want to go over this now, because you were asking yesterday about, like, what happens, let's say, like, the guy who's in yeshiva for 10 years and then he goes and starts working, like, how do you prevent yourself from falling into this? And yesterday I said, being Kuvay 18 and then keeping the right social group. And the right social group, the insight from last night's Tehillim is that you need to maintain your identity as someone who is involved in Chachma. And if you allow your identity to be, like, shifted by the new social group that you're in that is not involved in Torah, that's when these lines start to be crossed and you start to, like, be drawn into that value system, So, like, I'm not saying that that's the idea he is teaching, but I'm saying that came from, that was relevant to the discussion that his Mamar Chazal led us to. Yeah. Right. And then from Deos, we said that that's the Yom Tazveni Yomaim Azveka, right? That there's a pull to the extremes. There's never a pull to the middle. Right. So in terms of the middle path, assuming that the middle path is somewhat relevant to being involved in Torah, right? Derech HaChachamim, obviously, So then that's why it's the moving escalator. That if you stand still, then you're going to be pulled you're going to be pulled downwards. And that's why it's not just you abandon me one day, I'll abandon you for one day. It's like 2 days. Yeah.
Wow. So all three of our shiur yesterday.
Yeah. I was thinking about that. Yeah.
Wait. So are those two things related? That, like, there's a pull toward these guys, and there's also, like, how does that relate to the rationale of, like, oh, I'm not actually one of them? Like,
that's a good question. I mean, I guess because I guess it's two things that are pulling you towards them. There's the natural affinity that you have, and identification with whoever you are friends with. So that's a social pull that's not to their actions, but that's to them as people, and then there's the pull of everything they're involved in is something that is going to appeal to your instinct or emotions. Whether you say it is, like the Meiri ended up saying yesterday, that it's money, taiva, and success, taiva, and what was the third one? Oh, and like idling, like waste of time, like or whatever the latent value is. So there's a positive attraction to that as well. So you're really getting two enemies there.
Funny, success and idling are both
opposites.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah,
but they're both doing it. They're
right.
Both.
That is interesting. Yeah. And there is also something in common between the two, which is that, because the first time the Meiri talked about it, he just said mamon, but the second time he said mamon nitsuach srara, which was much more of an ego thing. And Leitzim definitely have an ego thing going on, of, like, sitting there and just talking about people, and, like, the self-centeredness of, like, just not contributing to stuff, So yeah, file that way for tomorrow. Okay, so let's go on. The shleimus halimud, or maybe now he's going to define shleimus halimud. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. Perfection of learning. Ikar to alto ino l'sha'ato raklokita yamin. The essential benefit is not for the present, but it's for the end times. V'higia tor adam hamala, when a person reaches the line of above. or when the person's turn reaches like to die, basically, right? V'chein she'im lo yitrach bo ba'odo bazeh ha'olam enosh olam enosh l'sabro rufu pa'ala ein lo. I feel like that's quoting something, right? Even though it doesn't have a footnote there, right? Doesn't that sound like he's quoting something? Yeah. I think the idea.
Like making a play on a pasuk or something.
Yeah. So I feel like the idea is that if you don't do it while you're in this life, then you're not going to get healing in the next life, because he quotes Chazal now. Kamar Ramzal, Olam Demel Erev Shabbos, but Olam Haba Demel Shabbos. This world is like Erev Shabbos, and next world is like Shabbos. Me should what?
Can't do both of them.
All right. Misha Tarach Erev Shabbos Yochel B'Shabbos. If you arrange your meals before Wednesday in yeshiva, then you'll have place to eat on. Someone who toils on Erev Shabbos will have what to eat on Shabbos. Misha Lo Tarach Erev Shabbos Pnei Yochel B'Shabbos. Then how are you going to eat on Shabbos, right?
It was like perfectly.
I thought that as I was reading it, I was like, well, I have to say this.
I slipped it in perfectly, and it's not like a perfect like example.
Yeah. Right, yeah.
Said some nonsense.
Yeah, yeah. Like even the ant gets its meals. So too, this world is comparable to being on the shore, and Olam Haba is comparable to being at sea. Yeah, it's always a question to me why they need two mashalim.
Yeah.
Let's finish it.
Okay.
If the person prepares on dry land, then he'll have stuff to eat at sea. Then how's he going to? If he doesn't prepare on dry land, how's he going to eat at sea? And don't just say he's going to go fishing. So first of all, just as a side point, not in this subject, but in metaphysics, like if you ever need to quote Mamare Chazal that support the Rambam's idea that Olam Haba is not a reward but a natural result, then these are the two Chazal to quote. Because the other one people quote is the Prosdor and the Traklin, that prepare yourself in the entryway before you go into the palace. But that lends itself to any sort of thing, just you should prepare. These are basically saying like it's like making it into like almost a practical thing. Like if you don't prepare on dry land, you're just not going to be able to get food at sea. Like you can only, and it fits in very well with the whole laziness thing of like if you don't plow in the winter, then you're going to not have food in the or plow and plant in the winter, you're not going to have food in the harvest. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the Yam one sort of makes a little less sense.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say it makes a little more. Okay, wait, why don't you say less?
On one hand, it reminds me of. It does make sense. It reminds me of the Newton quote about being on the seashore.
Oh yeah, that's nice. Yeah,
fun.
Yeah.
No, but it seems like it doesn't make sense just because the sea, like in my mind, like the sea is more like the dry land is more like tranquil than being.
Yes, yeah.
And like,
Oh yeah, that aspect. Yeah, emotionally, there's a plaque in that model.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. Where Haba compared to Jaffa,
Yeah.
compared to Olam Haba. I mean, Olam Haba, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was saying it makes more sense because I think there's something about the raw practicality of like obviously you have to bring supplies with you when you go in a place with no supplies. Like it has the idea of like a scarcity and an unavailability of getting stuff. Whereas the fact that Shabbos is like an artificially imposed halakhic reality dilutes the muscle a little bit for me.
I think maybe the purpose of that analogy has something to do with that fact. I don't know what.
Yeah.
But it's like it's not just like that's not the same sort of like the second is like a pragmatic thing.
Yeah.
The first is like some other thing.
Yeah, and I feel like that's where in the nuance lies. Yeah. All right, we can think about it. Not worth getting bogged down. Okay, and this next one's even stranger. Where are we now? Oh, okay. V'chein Amru. Where's this quoting from? This is from about what?
Before?
Oh yeah, sure. Oh, did you say can I make a point about it?
No, I didn't catch the point.
Oh, he was just saying in terms of perfection of learning, the essential perfection of learning is going to be for Olam Haba, meaning that's really what's going to remain with you forever. I don't think he means that
you're doing it.
You're doing it. What was it?
You're not doing it for Olam Haba.
Yeah, he doesn't make that point, but yeah, I mean, according to Ram, you're not doing it for Olam Haba, but like that's going to be like the Olam HaNitzchi where like where the results of your learning are really enjoyed, so to speak,
Right.
but yeah, he's not talking about the place where you prepare your learning or perfect your learning. All right, B'chein Amru l'shayara shayartim halech derech. So this is all comparable to a caravan that's traveling. Even Jabal Lahari, once it became starting to get close to evening, Ba Haburgani Eslam Amar Lahem. So I think Burgani, like an innkeeper, came to them and said to them, "Hikantu b'Burgan mipnei alitim, umipnei ha'ara." So come into the inn because of the bandits and the dangerous animals. And then they said to the innkeeper, it's not the way of a caravan to go into the inn. I assume because caravans are such that you can sleep in the caravan, right? I think that's just plain model. I don't really know nomad culture very well. Kevin Shahaku, once they left, I think once the innkeeper left, Ba Alehem Ishon Laila, Ba'afelas, and then it became pitch black at nighttime. Baroim Chayot Raus, Mafadros Ubaos. So they saw these dangerous animals circling around. Ballistim, Holchim, Umizainim, and bandits coming and arming themselves. Kazru Lahem Eitel Haburgani. So then they went back to the innkeeper, Umavakshi Mimeno, Shiftach Lahem Bikantu Baburgan. And they said, please open up and let us into the inn. V'hu Mishivam, and he answered them, Lo kach amarti lachem. Didn't I say this to you? He kantu baburgan but mi ba'odu yom. Go into the inn while it's still day. Yatem amartem ein darcha shoshayar likanas baburgan. You said it's not the way of a caravan to go into the inn. Miata ein darcha shoburgan liftoch balayla. And I'm telling you now, it's not the way of an inn to open up at night. Ein darcha shoshayar baburgan, and it's not the way of a caravan in an inn. So this is interesting. This is like, this is in the category of like goddesses that are like riddles.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So what's the riddle here?
Huh.
And this does seem different than the other two mashalim, right? Like,
Right.
Yeah, I think I'm saying people who are, if you say, like being told, like, if you like do this, you'll avoid these dangers.
yeah.
And if they're saying, oh, that's not what we do, and we'll be fine. But then when they're faced with those dangers, you'll want to like restart the decision, but it'll be too late.
Right. That's like that Mishlei paragraph that I read last night about like when the Pesukim and Kasilim and Rishayim get their when the storm comes, then they'll look for Chachma and it won't be there, and it'll mock them and say like, oh, now you want me, like, you're not gonna find me. But yeah, that last part, I saw you react also to that last part of if it ended with me in Darko Shobor and the Top good. But then he quotes to them there. Yeah.
That's fine.
In Ninshal, I think of people who are not governing themselves with Chachma, is that like a reasonable?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So
more specifically, not preparing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'd say maybe not availing themselves of Chachma.
Okay. Well, you could say what you're saying. I think the emphasis is on the preparation before the window of opportunity closes. That's the quality that we're focusing on here.
Yeah. Fine. Yeah. But I'm saying the way they're not preparing is by not availing themselves.
Right.
Yeah, it was definitely on the preparation, but it's at that point they're
not the way that they're not. Hold on. Let me just make sure that we're on the same page here. That the not getting Chachma is the particular.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. Meaning that's the subject that Meiri is applying laziness to.
Yeah. If the person is not preparing for the dangers by not getting Chachma.
Wait, just a clarification.
Yeah.
Is he using this as another module for Olam Haba?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. The same.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what I was going to say.
Yeah. Still might be relevant.
It was maybe a problem with that. We might also apply for Olam Haba, but like, at that point let's say people are saying like, it's not the way of people to like involve themselves in the Chachma, but rather to involve themselves in physicality.
Yeah.
I think this may be like the initial. And then when they are like reaping the consequences and they say, want to get chachma, they've already shaped themselves to be, but by rejecting chachma, they've made us so that it's now not their way to be involved in chachma. They've made it such that what they were saying was true, that for them it's not.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. So that reminds me of the fantasy that a lot of yeshiva guys have, that they go to yeshiva for a year or two, and then they say I value learning, and but I got to make a living, so I'm going to go all in on school and job and make a living, so that when I retire I can be involved in learning. But meanwhile, what happens is, because you're not investing time in the skills and intellectual and ethical virtues that make you into a learner, by the time you get there, you're not a learner, so you're not going to learn that. That's doing identity in a different way, in terms of actually forging what your identity is, not just your logical identity. Yeah. Okay, let's go on. So again, still thinking here, but since this is our last day, I kind of want to get abroad. Mitzad. When I said last day, I was also thinking about could be our last day at all, but that's not what I meant when I said it.
It's the line of something.
Yes, Shalmala, as people say. Mitzad Eloha Inyanim Nasa Mishalo B'inyan Hanamala. Now he goes back to the ant. Okay. Regarding these concepts, he gives his mashal by the namala. Shekol Eloha Derachin Etzla, because all of these ways are with her. Who Amru Balashon Ribui Derachaha. So it says in a plural language, her ways. Go to learn her ways. Kolomar, Shehi Torachat Harbe Babakashas Mithiasa. She toils a lot in the acquisition of her food. V'kasher hisiga yada mishtadelis b'shmira, and when she gets it, she strives to preserve it. V'chein sheyesh la hisbonenus, and she also has forethought. Lahakin be'es hayecholes kadei shetim sa'ehu beheder hayecholes, to prepare at a time of ability, so that she can find it when there's a lack of ability. This is true in seeking money, which is what he did in the derech nigla, and in seeking chachma. So now he's splitting evenly into three qualities: acquisition, retention, and then preparing for scarcity. Yeah. Just think about it for 1 second here. Because I feel like I was not aware. I mean, I know he said all those words before, but I wasn't aware that he was making them to three clean divisions.
So wait, can you read them?
Yeah, is acquisition. That was in the. I guess he didn't really. That was just his comment about the hishtadlus chazaka v'toreach rav, right? Then there's shmira, retention or preservation. That was when he said af kishi yagil l'shlim tzarich l'shkida v'hasmada. And then scarcity is olam haba. You can only prepare in this world. You're not going to be able to get it when you're there.
Right.
So I think there would be three corresponding Mishlei foolish hava minas. One would be an underestimation of how much work you need to do. Another one would be an underestimation of, or an overestimation of how easily you can preserve it. And then a third one would be the plowing season, of thinking that there will be time, or thinking that there is no window of time, that it's just a timeless thing.
What was the third category of the ants?
And the ant was if she prepares in the summer so that she can have
it's
in the winter.
The foresight.
The foresight, yeah.
Yeah. It's the acquisition, retention, and foresight.
Yeah. This kind of reminds me of also speaking. I was not our yeshiva, but I think of, there are definitely people who go to yeshiva or seminary and they're in conflict about whether they want to have their year in Israel devoted to learning or partying, and that is a war that goes on, and they tell themselves they can just go party and get it out of their system, and not realizing that the only amount of time that they're ever going to have to be devoted exclusively to investing in their chachma development is this 1 or 2 years, and by the time they get to the end of the year, they were I just squandered that opportunity. Now I'm gonna have to go back and I can learn, but I'll have to be in college. I'll have to have a job. It's that's the fantasy of the the timelessness. Like, oh, I could always like just you know, I can get food when I'm at sea, you know, but like you know, it doesn't work that way. Yeah, yeah. It's a uphill battle in many ways. Yeah, yeah.
But there, yeah, I guess yeah, no, not really.
Okay. I can turn off the recording.
No.
V'inyan asher ein la. I gotta go to the next column here. Ein la katzin shoter moshel. The fact that she doesn't have a. Yeah. Rosabo she'ein la seichel hisnahig bo al piv k'mosh bi'arnu. So that's going with his original shot that she doesn't have an intellect to conduct her to follow its advice. L'hayir la'adam she'ish lo katzin shoter moshel b'gufa. To show that, oh, this is an IFS thing, by the way. Okay, or it's at least you could use the IFS paradigm to show that a person does have a katzin shoter moshel in his body. So malchus is, as you know, of three types. Harishon melech al Medina. There's a king over a country. V'sheni malchus ko ish beveso. Then there's the malchus of each man in his house. Vashlishis malchus ko ish bekocho gufo. Right, is the malchus over his parts, over his internal. I mean, the koko gufo, his bodily faculties. He doesn't mean like your ability to like lift weights. He means like your psychological faculties, and you know, right.
So this is like social, like social dominion. Not dominion. Dominion's the wrong word.
I mean, dominion is fine. I think malchus. I don't think we mean like monarchy, you know, but like yeah.
There's like social
governance maybe is a better word. Yeah.
Social governance. Like familial governance and personal governance.
Yeah, right.
So I guess the question is like, aren't there like many levels of like there's also like the community governance and like
I'd say it's like social.
That's why I like the way you're putting in those those things. Yeah.
So why is family like? Isn't family just a smaller?
Well, I'd say like social is composed of like family unit, and like family unit is like I'd say almost like monolithic from the outside, but
like Aristotle says, like the smallest building blocks of society. Yeah. So it is social, but it also is a complete self-contained thing.
Yeah. But from the outside, isn't the community also a monolithic?
Yeah. I don't know if I should be bothered by these questions. Okay. I mean, he's saying it. There are three. Yeah. Like maybe you'll say there's five. You know, like
I'm trying to get his.
Yeah. No, I mean it's good to get his categories. I'm saying like for our purposes, in the next like 5 minutes, I don't need to do this. Yeah. So ushloshtam sarech hamelach l'tachsise hanhaga siflis v'mala. All three of them require. I never know how to translate tachsise hamelach. I think it means like protocol or like guidelines. You know, guidelines of the melech with hanhaga siflis, with intellectual governance and oversight, supervision. So it describes these three types of what word you used? Governance, yeah. Shultanos, I think is, or no, but I'm saying your word you used before that. Dominion, yeah. Shultanos is dominion, right? Sholate, you know, of person. So you see, he doesn't care about the words either. If he doesn't care about leitim kapayim and reshaim, yeah. Actually, I guess he did care about them because all didn't. To me, the explanation is ki eloha shlosha shehizkir himadregos zolam alamizo keseder ksivatam. So these are three levels, one higher than the other in the order of writing. Katzin lamata mikulam. Katzin is the lowest level. Bashoter lamala mina katzin, lamata mina hamoshel. Hamoshel hu lamala mikulam. So katzin is lower than Moshe, Shoter, and then Moshe. Okay. Okay, I'm just going to bring proofs. I don't care about this right now. Oh, well, we'll read it. So it's like a temporary manager. Or for a war. Shoter is appointed by the malchus, not by the people. But ekach es rosh yeshivtechem, v'teinotam roshim b'chole. V'shotrim l'shivtechem, tenim tatim mishtara ba'aretz. Okay, fine. Moshe hu hamelech or hamamuna b'makomo lahanhaga klalis b'chol malchusa. Moshe is the ruler. Ukvar b'koach haseichel ha'anushi. You can know this about the human intellect. Sheichalik l'shnei minim. and can be divided into two categories. By the way, for further reading, look at the Rambam in Hilchos in Shmona Prakim. I think this is exactly what the Rambam categories are for the rational faculty. Side point: Jake Adler used to say when he was talking about like having like time to think into himself, he would say, "I'm having a faculty meeting." I think that's good for yeah. That almost tickled me. The intellect, the faculty of the intellect can be divided into two powers, really, or two, whatever. Masi v'yuni, practical and theoretical. V'hamasi hu asher bo yivchar adam hadov hara. So practical is that by which the person chooses the good and the bad. V'yuni hu asher bo yivchar bo ha'emes v'hasheker. And theoretical is the true and the false. V'chein yadata shehamasi yichal l'shnei minim. It's also known that the practical is divided into two. One is how a person is figuring out how a person should strive to do the thing that he wants to do. So like all the crafts, right? Like blacksmithing and farming and other malachas. And this is also unique to man. Even though this faculty of intellect comes from the imaginative faculty, okay, I'm going to go into that right now. I want to see what the upshot is. The Chachamim already compared it to three places of darkness. One of them is reached by the light of the moon and it is illuminated. Or haner v'ha'ir. The other one is the light of a candle. V'hashlishi zarcha alav hashemesh v'ha'ir. Third one is the light of the sun. Shlosham niklu b'inyan ha'or, v'in ha'or ha'echa mimin ha'or ha'acher klal. But the three types of light are all completely different. Yeah. L'chein yavo mipol ha'koch ha'madame asher ba'adam tachbulos rabos k'mosh hizbar b'mkomo zeh b'min ha'chelak harishon sheb'inyan ha'seichel. Okay, fine. V'hu harbe l'min ha'adam u'lkofos ha'gufios ha'musimim oso aleim l'katzin. Elash ein ha'kavan bo klal lo yirtze l'korban yishel Hashem. All one faculty. We're going to that later. The second practical faculty is by which he chooses the good midos. So like ethical, which is part of practicality. Okay. This is more important and prior to the first one. But the first one comes first in nature. Okay, you know what? This is going too much into the faculties of the soul and their interrelation. And I'm realizing now to get what he's getting at, we would need to understand what those faculties of the soul are, and I think that's beyond the scope of what we're doing right now. So I think we should, and we have to stop in 2 minutes anyway. So I think we should stop here.
Okay.
Yeah, and tomorrow let's plan to do a regular Mishlei Kozak.
Yeah, I'm good with if we want to.